What's up, y'all? It's your girl V with Reality Recap here for a tea talk, a different kind of tea talk. Today, we're not recapping right now, anyways. We're not recapping an actual reality TV show, but we are recapping the interview that dropped last night with Love and Marriage Huntsville Martell Holt and his side baby mama turned back girlfriend, Arionne Curry, I believe, after watching the interview and their interactions last night. Um, Let me just give you a little bit of background. So the interview that dropped last night, we all think, or let me not speak for y'all. I think was in response to some allegations that Tisha made on Carlos King podcast last week, where she pretty much said that Martell sleeps with men. And he then had an interview, it dropped last night, an interview where he had receipts that Marsau has cheated on Tisha. Now, first, let me say we're streaming live across Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube right now. If you watch the interview and you have thoughts, if you have thoughts on any information that I'm providing you, you're welcome to put that in the chat. I can read your comments, see your comments, and if you can't watch this live in its entirety, it will be up on YouTube. So make sure you go over to my YouTube channel. Link is in the bio on Facebook and Instagram. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Now, back to business. This interview dropped yesterday um, behind Arionne's YouTube channel. And first off, let me just be clear, I am no millimeter. I don't stand with any reality TV star where I always think whatever they do because I like them is correct. Um, I also don't pay Martell much mind. Like, I don't. I think that he was wrong for what he did to Melody. She glowed up, moved on, glowing and growing every single day. I think that's her best revenge. And I've kind of moved on from that. I did feel like the allegations that Tisha made against Martell kind of was knocking at his door. So when I saw that he was going to have this interview, I wasn't shocked by it. I immediately felt like it was in response to the things she said about him. Um, and I really, not to say I was looking forward to it, because you don't want to see demise in a marriage, especially not, a black couple that's been together so long. And I just felt like she knocked and he was going to answer. Now, I did say when I saw that the interview was coming, I'm going to need to see some receipts. Like, I didn't want this woman to get up here and just talk and not have any receipts. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. And we're going to get into it. Now, first of all, the interview was supposed to drop 6 p.m. CST time, which is 7 o'clock my time. Not the case. It was about, I want to say 30, 40 plus minutes late before we got the actual interview. The editing, I don't know who edited this video, but it was pretty bad where you could clearly see that it was bits and pieces taken and put together. They would be mid sentence, it would cut off and go to another scene. So the editing here was very amateur, to say the least. And this woman had absolutely no receipts. So for me, it was disappointing. Because if you're gonna make these type of allegations or have this interview, everyone was buzzing about it. It was disappointing, to say the least. Yeah, let's get into it. So this woman, Chantel, that's her name. She made a lot of claims, but there were a lot of inconsistencies that I noticed. So let me give you some examples. So, um, well, I'm trying not to be all over the place, y'all, because this interview was just like that. It was just all over the place. But her name was Chantel. She says she's from Birmingham, Alabama. She says that she resides in Atlanta for the last 10 years. She said that she met Marceau in a local bar in Huntsville, that they hung out that night, but went home their separate ways. But immediately the next day, they started hanging out together. She made claims Summer's Finest said, "What are we talking about?" We're talking about the interview that Arionne and Martell did last night with Marsau's alleged mistress. So, small recap. We all know Tisha did the interview last week claiming that Martell sleeps with men, that he exposes things in his phone all the time, that he had been showing around Arionne having some type of plastic surgery, seemingly a BBL. And this interview seems to be in response to those allegations that Tisha made on Carlos King's podcast. Summer's trying to say, yes, we'll get in. Let's get into it. Yes, we are. I was just telling the people the interview was all over the place. There was no receipts whatsoever provided other than her just sitting there talking while drinking Inez wine, honey. And the video was poorly edited. You can tell that it was pieces cut from different places and put together. So we're talking about the woman that was there. Her name was Chantel. She said she was from Birmingham, Alabama, and that she's resided in Atlanta the last 10 years. She says she met Marsau in a local bar. They talked, they hung out that night. She liked the vibe. They didn't go home together that night, but immediately the next day they started talking and hooking up. Mind you, there was no disclaimer on this interview, no talks of saying the word allegedly. So I'm going to say allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. All this stuff was alleged, okay? They didn't say that. And I can't imagine they would want to be sued over this poor interview. I don't know what they were thinking. It was giving to me it was giving, and like I said, I really don't pay Martell no attention. I don't, I'm over what he did to Mel. She's glowed up and moved on. But it was giving, maybe Inez Juan ain't doing well. He has, nothing else really going for himself. We see some home developments on the show. But Arionne doesn't really have much going on for herself. Her TikTok, that's about it. It was giving, let me put this out here. Let me get my subscribers up. Let me try to get some money off of this, is what it was giving to me when I started watching it. But yeah, Chantel, back to her. She made claims and accusations that weren't consistent. She said that she would see Marsau between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., mostly at Maurice's Credit One business establishment. They asked her, what does it look like inside of there? She said it's a big round table and a bunch of rooms. Isn't that most office buildings or offices? I have no idea. She made claims that they would have intercourse, bent over chairs, at Credit One. They never went to hotels. She also made claims that he would give her money and he would either give her cash or it would be cashed up to her through other people like Maurice, is what she made accusations on. And it wasn't consistent because she would say in one breath that he was cheap, he wouldn't give her money. That's why she wasn't into him. And then on the other hand would say that he sent cash through other people or through Cash App, other people he wanted no trace. So that was inconsistent. She also said that she liked him and the vibe because she was looking for a husband. She claimed she did not know at the beginning his marital status. I guess she lives under a rock. But she claimed that she was dating, looking for a husband. She wants kids, all of those things. But then on the other hand, when she was asked about Tisha and knowing about her, she would say, well, I wasn't trying to take him for her. I ain't want him like that. So it was real inconsistent. She didn't have any receipts for these cash apps that she allegedly received. She didn't have any photographs of her with Maurice or I'm sorry, with Marsau or in this Credit One office. And right, he does not wear a ring. Right. Summer's Finest on Instagram saying that he does not wear a ring. True. Maybe she hasn't ever watched Love and Marriage Huntsville. The name of the show is Love and Marriage Huntsville. Maybe she hasn't ever watched that, but she claimed at the beginning that she did not know he was married, but then she became suspicious when all she was getting was being bent over at 2 a.m. at Credit One, and there were no dates or anything like that. She also alleged that they took a trip to Vegas and that Martell came on the trip as well as Maurice. They came on the trip to Vegas. She could remember that they hung out, they had a lot of drinks, they went to Ross, um, which is, I believe, a clothing store. We don't have Ross's up here in Jersey, but I believe Ross is a clothing store. And she said they went to Ross. She, to get some things that Martell stood up for her and told Marsau, like, hey, you brought her out here, you should pay for her Ross items. And that he did. She could remember all the things leading up to that night where she claims that there was more intercourse that involved not only Marsau, but also Maurice. That they all, like, I ain't gonna say they all slept together, but they both penetrated her, is what she was saying. And what she could not remember was if they both used protection or not. It was insane, y'all. This interview was totally insane. And again, no receipts of a flight, no receipts of a trip to Vegas. It was literally just her there talking and not being able to recall the important details. It also was interesting to see Arionne and Martell's dysfunctional toxic relationship. There was a lot of, it almost turned like Arionne was interviewing him, because she would be like, okay, so what was you doing on this trip to Vegas? Hmm. um and the girl was like, "Well, he just was gambling a lot. He didn't do nothing. He wasn't around, but he was around when I needed him. Like when Marcel wouldn't pay for stuff, he would tell him to pay for it." Meanwhile, Martell is looking at this woman trying to cooperate with this story, but also in his face looking like, "What is this woman talking about?" I don't know. It was clear in his body language, his facial expressions. He ain't never seen this woman before. He even asked, like, because she said things about Martell, like, yeah, he loves to gamble and spend money. And he even said, like, how do you know that? And she said, well, before we started the interview, you told me how much you gamble. So I don't know. It was definitely, there was no receipts involved. It was no consistency in her story. I was truly, truly disappointed. Um, the woman was talking about relationships and how if a woman says to you she gonna go cheat on you, believe her because she is. And then Martell turns to Aaron like, "Oh, well, I guess you cheated on me because you said that to me before." And she like, "What, baby? What?" She calling him baby. She's grilling him on his whereabouts when he was in Vegas. It was like, girl, are you interviewing this woman? Or are you interviewing your baby daddy slash boyfriend? It was so confusing. And like I said, the clips were cut, chopped, and screwed worse than T-Pain, honey. I don't know. If you guys haven't watched it, it's about 30 minutes long, but it was a complete mess. A complete mess. Someone's trying to say fake news at best. Yeah, it was truly disappointing. I would be surprised if there's no lawsuit or repercussions for that interview. Like I said, there was no disclaimer. There was no saying of alleged, nothing. She had no text messages, no pictures, no Cash App, receipts, no. She said that he sent her airline ticket to Vegas. She didn't have any of the things that she claimed. I know I saw some people on my Facebook page saying like, well, it was half truth because there was a trip to Vegas. that there was questions about what Marcel and Maurice did on the show. Totally agree with that. But how do we know that this trip she's speaking about is that same trip? She didn't give any dates, any timelines, receipts, proof, any of that. Okay. Hey, Heather Gay. None of that. Okay. So I don't know. It gave the information that she provided. Some people were saying, well, this is stuff we already know. That's what it was given. It was given, she watched this show, and that's the stuff that she would get. We already heard rumblings in the jungle that it goes down at credit one, but she ain't had no proof for that. We already know that there's a trip to Vegas that allegedly Arionne went on. And she was the one that was there on that trip. She acting like she ain't never seen this woman before. She wasn't on that trip. She's questioning Martell what he was doing on that trip. It was all things, like I said, that we have already heard rumblings in the jungle, but she had no receipts. She even claimed that she would pull up on him, the relationship that they had, she would just pull up on him and hang out with him. How if you reside in Atlanta? I get Atlanta is not that far from Huntsville, but it was said in a manner like she would be in the neighborhood and pull up and they would hang out. How if you're saying that you resided in Atlanta the last 2 years? I mean 10 years. It just did not make any sense whatsoever. It didn't. Mimi Bird says just because she didn't the audience proof doesn't mean it didn't happen, and maybe she showed them the proof. Did you watch the whole interview, Mimi Burns? I'm just asking because it didn't come off to me like there was any fact checking done before this interview. And that could very well be the case. But when you're making accusations like this on someone's husband, you need proof. They could be sued for this. Okay. Like that's the bottom line. At this point, it's just defamation of character. But it didn't seem like there was any fact checking or proof done other than this woman texting Arionne and say she was willing to come forward and them throwing together this interview. Very well could be the case, Mimi, that she gave proof behind the scenes. But in order for me to believe it personally, where's your receipts? And that's all I'm saying. It was inconsistencies in her story. One hand, she would say he was cheap and didn't want to give her money. On the other hand, she's saying he cash app through other people. She's saying that she wanted a husband and a wife and they had a great relationship. The other second, she's saying all he did was bend her over at Credit One between 2 and 4 a.m. She's saying that, like she wanted this husband situation, but then also said she didn't want that from him. It was not, her story was not consistent all the way through. Mimi said it's subjective. I did watch the interview and Martell knows he can be sued and we need to see how it will play out. Yeah, we definitely are going to see how it plays out. Marsau and Tisha didn't seem bothered by it. They had dropped a live right around the time that this interview news had came out that it was gonna be loaded that night. And they were just building homes. They didn't seem too worried about it. I saw Miss Wanda got on live last night laughing at the interview. So we will have to see how it plays out. But did I personally walk away with anything concrete that this woman even ever been in Marsau's presence? I did. Other than what she said. Anybody can get online and say anything about anybody that don't make it true. But if you're gonna make those type of accusations, I would think you would have some type of proof along with it. But she sat there with Inez wine in her hand, nothing else, not a phone, not a receipt, not nothing. So if you have not watched the interview, take a look, come back, let me know your comments. You can put them up on my YouTube channel, on Facebook as well. I usually don't post them up on Instagram after the live ends, but you can go to my YouTube channel if you have not watched the interview. I am I'm concerned for Martell. I really am, in the sense of he tagged Carlos King, he tagged OWN Network in this interview as if they had some part in it. I'm concerned of the repercussions to come for Martell. I really am. And I want to believe him. I want to, because I always say where there's smoke, there's fire. We've been hearing things about Marsau for so long. And again, not saying I want to see demise of his marriage with Tisha, but we've been hearing this for so long. I really thought he was going to come with some concrete evidence, but I did say she's going to have receipts for me. And that was not provided. So we'll see what the Scots come back, what the Scots come back with, and if they respond to this foolishness in any way. Will they file a lawsuit? We don't know. We'll have to see. They talked about, and our Arionne even encouraged at the end of the interview for other women to come forward and tell their story if they had any type of dealings with Marsau. So she said if so, she would have a part 2, part 3, all of that. But in other words, it was obvious that there's some type of relationship between Arionne and Martell right now. It definitely was given as she was rubbing his arm, calling him baby. She claimed that he spends money on her, Louis Vuitton, all this stuff. Yet Sheree said all he got her was like a Rebecca Minkoff bag or something like that. I don't know. But it wasn't up to her standards, I guess, Sheree, of like Chanel and all of those things. So there is some type of relationship going on with them. They seem to be back together. Last thing I will say, it was a little disturbing for me how they would be like, Arionne would be like, oh, well, Marcel cash strapped you through other people. Well, that could be true because that's what Marcel used to do to me. Remember that time I needed my car fixed and you had Marcel send me the money so I could get it fixed? Like, she was telling on herself too, the dealings of when he was cheating on Melody with her. It was wild. Like, it was the wildest thing. All I could do was sit there and laugh. Like, she's spilling her own tea. She's grilling Martell. What about this lady over here? You ain't give her no grillings, no dealings, you ain't asked for no dates, no receipts, nothing. And yeah, interview was chopped all up, mushed together. The editing was amateur at best. So take a look at it. It's on Arionne's YouTube channel. It's Arionne Curry 27. That's her YouTube channel. If you have not seen it, I put a small clip of the about 30+ minute interview on my page last night. But those are my thoughts on the interview. Highly disappointed. And I will see what the Scots' response is. That is my thoughts on it. It is your girl V with Reality Recap. I will be back. I need to catch up on some recaps. So we need to recap Friday's episode of Love During Lockup, season finale of Bell Collective, and last night's episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville as well. So look out for those recaps. And please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Link is in my bio on Instagram or Facebook. Please like, share, and subscribe. Y'all have a great Sunday. Go Lions. I'll see you later. Peace.